The Brand X podcast is sponsored by Audio Editing Solutions. Editing your podcast just not your thing? Go to audioeditingsolutions.com and see how affordable professional audio editing can be. Oh, that's fucking me. I'm sorry. It's going to be a great show. First of all, my mic's down and my speakers are on. Do we just start the whole fucking thing over again?
Good.
I'm jamming in the music, and all of a sudden the music goes off. I'm like, who's talking? Douchebag.
You're a little hard on yourself, John. I don't think you're a douchebag.
I do. All right. Here we go. The Brand X podcast is sponsored by Audio Editing Solutions. Editing your podcast just not your thing? Go to audioeditingsolutions.com and see how affordable professional audio editing can be. I don't like that either because the music was down too low. Okay. Sorry. Oh, let's take 3. The Brand X podcast is sponsored by Audio Editing Solutions. Editing your podcast just not your thing? Go to audioeditingsolutions.com and see how affordable professional audio editing can be. Welcome to another episode of the Brand X podcast. I'm John.
And I am Deuce. And I know that I screwed up Clancy Brown's name last week after I heard the podcast, and I said so to my brother.
So, since that happened, we got a little correction.
Nice to know he's listening.
Yes, the Donald. Not the Donald, Donald Trump, the better Donald, I don't want to say his last name. But one of the members, the original members of Brand X, was listening and realized that you said Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown is the actor's name, but
but you said Clancy
Last
Jones.
week I was 3 monkeys in. Because that's...
Oh, that's right. We did record last week.
Yeah, and I was I was drinking Golden Monkeys. And
oh, you're drinking gold? That's what we had. We had, what did we have, Swinging Monkeys?
Well, that was the Monkey Girls.
The Monkey Girls. We had Monkey. You were drinking...
I was drinking Golden Monkeys.
And we were talking about the Monkey Girls.
And Golden Monkeys, if you've never drank Golden Monkeys, are 9.3% alcohol. So for...
Holy cow.
Yeah, so every monkey you drink is like 1.5 regular beers. So, I had 6, the equivalent of like 6 beers. So, I'm just ripping with it. Yeah, Clancy Jones. And the next day you kicked ass and you got that thing out the next day. And I'm driving to work. I'm all happy. I got something to listen to. And I was like, ah. And then I heard from Joe, and I said, yeah, I have to immediately pull a mea culpa when we do our next podcast. And unbeknownst to me, Don...
He sends an email. And it's funny, he doesn't even use our real email. Like, he goes over to the website and uses the hello at brandxpodcast.com.
Oh, I guess that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I know, but he, comes over. It's like a official. Oh, look, listener feedback. It's Don. He goes, Clancy Jones, 5 question marks. Are you kidding me? You had me screaming at my phone. Clancy Brown.
I was screaming at my phone when I heard that. I was like, you jackass. I can't believe you did that.
And then he left the IMDb link in there for the actor. Yes. And then as soon as I saw the actor, I knew exactly who you were talking about. But here's the thing. I didn't realize he was the voice of Mr. Krabs.
Yes, he is.
How about
and he sings the theme song.
And he seems, well, yeah.
And I'm assuming those are his lips that you see at the beginning superimposed over the pirate painting.
I have to look now because he's got that little gap in his tooth. Not as big as Michael Strahan, but he's got a little gap. So I'll have to look. Maybe that is him.
Oh, it's absolutely him.
Well, I know that, but maybe it's his lips in the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I would guess it is. I mean,
right?
I can't see them hiring someone just for a pair of lips and then have his voice come in over it.
It's
kind of stupid. I don't know what the budget is for Nickelodeon on SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah, probably back in the day when they first started it, it probably wasn't that big. So look, listen, and now I'm just trying to think about all the people that are in there now that have made more money probably. Well, I don't know about, Clancy. What's his name? Clancy Brown. I don't know about Clancy Brown because he was in a lot of stuff. You're right. He was in Highlander. He was in a ton
also,
of different...
Joe pointed out a movie you did not see, which we mentioned last week in the Shawshank Redemption. He's the captain of the guard force in the prison where the movie takes place. So there's another reason you should go see the Shawshank Redemption, besides the fact that it's an awesome movie.
I got to tell you something. We're going off track right now, but I don't care. I have a huge fear of prison. I don't ever want to be locked in someplace where I have no control and everybody has control over me.
And anal raping is a regular occurrence.
Yeah. I'm not. So I watched this show this week. It's on the A&E network. It's called 60 Days In.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
And it's a show about the Cook County Jail in
Chicago.
Lexington, Kentucky.
Kentucky? Okay.
It's in Kentucky, right? And, outside, somewhere in Kentucky. And what they did was they took 7 people off the streets and they put them in jail for 60 days, trying to get some kind of, just to go in there as a spy. And they didn't tell anyone. There was only 3 people that knew about this that was going on. The sheriff, the deputy sheriff, and then one other
Probably
person.
The warden, I would think.
No, they didn't want to do this because there was so much corruption and everything in there.
Warden, okay.
Yeah, they wanted to know what was going on there, and they wanted it from a perspective of a guard. Now, the other thing they did was they were shooting a documentary in there. So this way they could keep cameras in there, keep an eye on everybody. And I'll tell you what, as soon as I started watching the show and they locked those guys up, I immediately got claustrophobic. Like, I could feel it. I could feel it for them. And I don't want to, do any spoilers, but it's a great show. I'm trying to think how many episodes there are. Maybe 12, 10, 12, 14. I forget.
What is it, an hour long?
Yeah, it's an hour long. Now, here's the problem I have with these A&E dramamentaries or whatever you want to call them. What they do is they repeat a lot of the same things over and over and over. Like they go to commercial, then they come back, and then they think that in the 3 minutes you went to commercial, you're an idiot, and you forgot everything that happened. So they give you a little preview of what happened before the commercial.
Well, you're right.
Then they go back into the show.
There is a reason for that because that gets on my last nerve also.
Right. What's the reason?
Because they know that channel surfing is so prevalent nowadays that no one really hangs for the commercials. So the theory is that if you are watching something and you decide, let me see what else is on, and then you land on that, if they continually give you a little bit of background as to what happened previously, it gives the viewer a point of reference and they'll hang in there for the rest. That's the theory.
Okay, so here it is for the 4%, maybe 5% of people that might happen upon this show. You are aggravating the piss out of everybody that's a real, actual, viewer of the show. So finally what happened was I kind of knew what was happening. I watched maybe 10 episodes. I kind of knew what was going to happen, and I just jumped to where they got out and then the last couple episodes. So I jumped over the last 3 because I knew there wasn't anything going on in there. They had already basically showed you everything, and I was sick of it. Now what I did was I watched it. I have the A&E app on my iPad, and I have the iPad, in my bedroom. That's kind of like my TV. Mm-hmm. So I have it on the nightstand. So, when I go to sleep, I watch that. So what would happen is you'd have like maybe 3 minutes of show and then 3 minutes of commercial. And you can't fast forward through the commercials. And you hear the same 6 commercials every time they went to commercial break. So if you watch 10 episodes, you see the same 6 commercials
over and over
the whole time. Yeah, so it's ridiculous. It's it's annoying. It really is. It gets to be annoying. But okay. So they put the commercials on there and you have to watch them. So okay, I have to watch them. It's not a big deal. I know what happens. The nice thing they do is they put how long before the show comes back. So it's like 3 minutes. And then, so that way you can go get a drink, get a snack, go to the bathroom, and
fry
you've
an
got
egg.
3 minutes. Fry an egg, boil an egg.
You never know when you get that protein, Jones. I need an egg.
Yeah, you can microwave a dinner. You can do a lot of stuff in 3 minutes. So anyhow, that whole incarceration thing is, it just, I can't even imagine.
So I guess it's
that must be
kind of like when we were kids and they had Scared Straight. They used to show that to us in school.
Well, I'll tell you what, that worked for me. I was like, you know what? I don't want to go to jail.
Yeah. It's like,
I will do everything I can to stay out of jail.
I read I know you know who Alfred Hitchcock is, but he had a deathly fear of prison as well. And probably if you did this nowadays, someone would call a DYFS on you or, child services. And what his father, there was an interview, a famous interview, and his father took him to the police department. He's from England, so I guess it was probably a small town he was from or whatever. And I don't know how old he was, but he was a young boy, like 8, 9, maybe 12 tops. And his father had the sheriff or the constable lock him up in the cell, and they walked away and they left him there for like a half an hour. And it scared the shit out of Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Like he never, ever wanted to, and scared him straight. So now, like I said, if you did that nowadays, it would, you'd be the most horrible parent on the planet. They'd be demonizing you on the Dr. Phil show or whatever. So.
We have a story about that coming up a little bit later, about the same kind of thing. But you're right. I mean, I think nowadays everybody thinks it's a joke. That prison's not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal. And, anyhow, if you get a chance to A&E, go over and watch 60 Days In, because they don't even go out in the yard anymore. It's a county jail.
Right.
And they are inside. There's no yard. There's no nothing like that. You're in a pod with like 50 other inmates. And, that whole hierarchy. And,
I'd like to know whose bright idea it was to let the prisoners lift weights continually all day long. So we get super mutant. Well, they should be lifting weights.
Well, what should, how are they supposed to get some exercise?
Needlepoint.
It's not really exercise.
Yeah, so it's better than having a beefy prisoner.
Let me tell you something. They didn't have this in this prison. What they did lift weights, but what they did was, I think they had a mop and a broom in there that they had to clean. They had to clean their own cells. Nobody came in and cleaned anything for them. Mm-hmm. And one of the pods, I guess the pod boss was I guess I'm giving some of the stuff away. Sorry for the spoilers. One of the pod boss was like to clean. So 3 times a day, they would go in and sweep and mop the whole, outer floor, where they all, ate and everything. And they would wipe the tables down. What they would do is they would take that broomstick and they would take a jumpsuit and they would put stuff in the jumpsuit that was heavy. I don't know what they put. I couldn't see what they put in it. And they would use that to work out with. Because they had nothing else to... Oh, and push-ups. Right. They did a ton of push-ups and sit-ups and stuff like that. There's no gym there. They had one 60-inch screen TV, and they all watched that.
I don't know if it's still this way, but I remember reading a story like in Time or Newsweek back when they actually published, when I owned my store. And if you went to prison in other countries, you were as good as dead. You got no mail, you got no visitors. There was no weight room to work out, and there was no cable television. There might have been like a radio in the common area where that's what you listen to, whatever the prison decided to play for you. And I'm not saying that prison is easy, but compared to other countries, what they do when they're in prison, the prisons here are more or less like country clubs. A lot of these prisoners get a lot of perks compared to like Japan or Turkey.
Okay, you might say that. That's fine. You watch 60 Days In and see if you think they get any perks. They try to feed them on $1 per meal. Mm-hmm. So the food is made, as $1 per meal. And they get commissary and stuff like that. But it's no country club. That jail.
Now, what I'm saying,
that's only county
compared
jail.
to other countries, what we're running here is pretty easy.
I don't know how you say that.
Well, because I read the article of what's going on in Japan and Turkey.
I understand what they're doing. I understand. Listen, I don't want to go to jail over there either.
No, you don't want to be in a Turkish
I don't want to go to
prison
over there, but I can't consider what they do, what's going on in these prisons as country clubs. I'd never want to go.
Mm-hmm. No, I have no interest in that at all.
No. To be honest with you, because everybody's like, oh, he did this, he should go to jail for that, and I'm thinking to myself, you willy-nilly throw this jail thing around like it's nothing. These guys did 60 days. I know someone that went away for 6 months, mm-hmm. and he came out the other side and everything, and I don't know, he doesn't really talk about it that much, and we don't really ask, but yeah. That had to suck.
Yeah, it's
and
not,
you don't get that time back.
Yeah, no,
and I'm sure that's got to go slow. Now,
but they're not willy-nilly just pulling people off the street and throwing them in there either.
Right. Well, the thing that he did was he got signed up for the crew that went out and worked on the roads and stuff like that.
Right.
So he could get out and go out and work. So at least he was out of the jail for a while. But, these other
I think they only,
there was no work.
I'm not up on how that works, but I think they only let the low-risk prisoners out to do that. You're not going to let's let the triple axe murderer out and clean some roads. I mean, that's generally not going to happen, So it's generally when you see those guys out on the side of the road with the pointed sticks and the point-head sticks, they're generally low-level criminals. I don't know. They might be number runners, shit like that. I guess I don't know. I don't want to know. So I'm not going to stop by and interview them. So
hey, what'd you do so you can actually get out? How do you like cleaning the roads?
Orange is your color.
Yeah.
Generally might take offense to that.
Really makes you almost look like Trump.
I think the word you were looking for is docudrama.
Docudrama. There you go. It's a docudrama. Right. It's kind of like, what was it? The Amish Mafia, and a lot of these shows are that way. Even the fishing show, which is the one where they do
Most Dangerous Catch and
Wicked Tuna. All those, they have the same format, which drives me absolutely crazy.
It makes you wonder also. I mean, that's what they say, why they keep going back over old territory when you come back after a commercial break. But maybe they just don't have a whole lot of content. And they do it just for that.
I can't see that, like, especially like the Deadliest Catch. They're out there for a long time with these
after
boats.
Season. What do they have to, 15 seasons
they would
now?
have,
I think, I get it now.
But I mean, even the season that they're shooting, there's got to be tons of stuff that they could put in there that would be more interesting.
And there was a whole bunch of shows you had Ice Road Truckers, you had Axemen. They never did like a hard hitting series about accountants. That's what like what's going on. Cubicle workers, just
Yeah, sure. They're not really gonna.
Just it's got to be super. Like how many lumberjacks are there in the world?
Well, I understand that, but who wants to go watch an accountant break a pencil?
Yeah, well, just doesn't have to necessarily be an accountant. Could be fast food workers.
Well, one of my favorite shows was the Parking Wars, where they followed around the Philadelphia parking. Yeah, because I was actually around when that was going on. Like I was over in the city when they were filming that. And let me just say something. I mean, I know the parking, there's, they try to make it like where the parking authority was, the good guys and the people were the bad guys. But just let me tell you, they were pricks. They would stand there and line up, and at 4:00, you had to have your car out of off a certain streets at 4:00, and they would all line up and wait. And 4:00, man, you better, if your car was there, if they could get your license plate, you were getting a ticket.
I swear they hid in bushes, because when I was working for Nat Sherman, Philadelphia was my largest market, and what Center City, Philadelphia is like. Good luck trying to find a parking spot. Right. So there was a store, I think it was on 8th and Locust, between Locust and Walnut, somewhere around there. And I'm driving around the block. And I can't find it. Finally, this half-ass space opens up. Like if I was driving a Fiat, I would have been in. It would have been no problem. So it's so I half-ass my way into that space. And I run in the store. And I literally say, "Hi, I'm from that Sherman Cigarettes. Do you need anything? I'll run right out and get them." No, I'm good. I was in and out of that store in 45 seconds, and that fast, there was a ticket on my windshield. I couldn't believe it. I was like, where was this guy hiding? Or woman? Right. Where were they? They were like ninjas.
They know these. Here's the thing. They're loading zones, passenger loading zones, regular loading zones. And you have to have a permit to park there. And they hang there because there's no parking spots. Mm-hmm. So what happens is and people need to park, so they're waiting there for someone to say, "I can't take this anymore. I'm not putting this in a garage. I'm just going to go here and try it real quick."
You were better off doing that because when Mayor Nutter took over, well, I guess it's 9 years ago, he was the newly elected mayor at the time. And if you got a parking ticket in Philadelphia, it was $28. Well, if you were to put your car in a parking garage all day, it would cost you about $35 or $40.
Right, downtown,
So,
right in the center.
Yes.
Center part of Center
So
City.
generally,
yes.
I would just park illegally and take the ticket and just walk everywhere because I know they're not going to tow the car away. And as long as I left the ticket on the windshield, everything would be hunky-dory. They're not going to tow it. All right, fine. It was cheaper than parking. And then that's what I would do. But then when Mayor Nutter came in, I mean, he wasn't stupid. He got hip to that. And then they increased the fine to like, I think $44 or something like that. So now it was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Now I got to go find a parking garage.
You know what I used to do? I would get a ticket. And then I would go to another spot and I would
Just
park
insert
illegally
the
and I put the
ticket
ticket
under
there.
it, yeah.
And then what happens, the parking rats, as we used to call them, they would notice that you'd put the ticket under there. They'd look at the ticket and they'd give you another one. You'd go over, there's two tickets.
Well, you know what the Jersey license plates look like now.
Yes.
Okay. Back in the day, probably when you first started driving and before Jersey went to the blue tags, they had the same type of tag, but they weren't reflective. Remember,
Right.
they were like that flat tan with the black letters. I had a buddy of mine. He would get black electrical tape, and he would just turn the letters into something else.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
he would turn an S into a 6. You know,
Right.
he would do all, and he would just park anywhere with impunity. He just had piles and piles of tickets. He was,
And he would just throw them out because they couldn't.
yeah, right.
They couldn't,
Meanwhile,
brilliant.
some poor son of a bitch in like Weehawk in New Jersey is getting
like,
a ticket. I was never
Who's
there.
getting all these tickets?
Yeah, you know, so
know.
it was like, it was funny as hell. But I mean, talk about seasoning initiative. That was pretty smart.
That is pretty smart.
It was the guy I went to
Bravo.
art college with. That's who he.
All right, so let's do a Podern Family promo. Podern Family is a hashtag we use on Twitter, and it's a bunch of independent podcasters who use that hashtag. And if you want to check out some great podcasts, go over there and search the hashtag Podern Family, and they have some really good shows. That's how we found Three Is Comedy, and that's how I found a ton of shows. Well, I knew Classy Little Podcast, but that she's over there, her and James, but there's a ton of them over there.
What is the Podern Family?
This is Gareth from the Open All Powers podcast.
This is Adam from Everyone Has a Podcast.
This is Matthew McDonough from the Passersby Podcast.
This is Nick from the Epic Film Guys podcast.
This is Eric Mocker from the Mockers Podcast.
Hey, this is Rick from Ice and the Face.
Hey guys, it's Rad Dad Chad,
J Mills, and Lil Man
from the Full of Fiber podcast.
Hey, we're Josh and David from the Scotch and Flicks podcast.
Hey y'all, it's Juliette Miranda from the Unwritable Rant podcast.
Hey, this is Bro from the World of Row podcast.
This is Cyanide from the Little Geek Lost podcast.
This is Paul from the Countdown Movie and TV Reviews podcast.
This is Greg from the Sports Stands podcast.
This is Knock from the Geek Ogre podcast.
We are you, podcasters coming together in a community to help one another grow. So follow us on Twitter at Podern Family and use the hashtag Podern Family in your tweets and retweet other people who do the same. Podern Family, where great podcasts come home.
Oh, Deuce, you know, we got to pour one out.
I got mine ready.
Pinky, the Chilean flamingo, was euthanized in a Florida theme park after being badly injured by a man who reached into its pen, threw it to the ground, Tampa police said on Wednesday. Orlando resident Joseph Anthony Corrado, 45, was arrested and jailed on felony animal cruelty charges. See? He's going to the hoose cow over an animal charge.
Right.
In connection with the incident involving a bird. This, I can't understand. Why would a guy just grab this bird
Right.
and kill it?
I mean,
or throw it to the
I'm
ground?
assuming there might have been alcohol or drugs involved, but you know, they don't really allude to that. I mean, you go
Did
to
it attack his kid?
Well, if you go to a zoo, well, it says he reached into the pen,
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense. And
Do you think it was mocking him?
I don't know, making fun of him. I don't know. Maybe it was.
The 19-year-old animal suffered traumatic injuries, and the veterinarians decided to humanly euthanize it.
You go, Mindy.
You go. I'm leaving that in now. She's going to get mad at you.
It was funny.
Oh, no, you ain't backing
I
out
love
of
the
that
way
one.
that she did that.
Humanely euthanized as, oh my goodness.
Okay, let's try it this way. The 19-year-old animal suffered traumatic injuries and veterinarians decided to humanely euthanize it as a result, said park spokesman Karen Varga Sinka.
Police did not give a motive Jail records did not list a lawyer for Corrado, who is being held on $2,000 cash bond.
And his name is Correo.
Correo?
You're throwing a D in there.
Correo. You know, I'm thinking of Corrado from Sopranos.
I know exactly what you were thinking.
Videos previously posted online showed Pinky twirling and tapping. It's webbed feet, a behavior the park said the flamingo loved to show off for guests. Sorry, Pinky.
I was surprised that they lived that long, a 19-year-old animal.
Yeah.
I mean, I know parrots live a long time, but I didn't. I guess other birds.
A bird's a bird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting fed and it's living. It's living a life down there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to worry about any alligators eating it or something. So I guess it's
But what is it?
Guys of old age.
What is it about Florida that you always see stories like this?
I'm going with the heat.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I'm going with the heat because we've had.
But there's heat in other states.
Not like Florida, not the humid heat like they have down in Florida.
And New Jersey.
Well, it's been so bad outside. I mean, I like to go out at night when it gets dark and you get a cool breeze blowing. Past week, we've not even had that.
Yeah.
So it's horrible. I think the heat, maybe this bird did something, shook its tail feathers in the wrong way. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, but that's like no reason to I
wonder how much time you get in jail for killing a flamingo.
I don't know. They gave Michael Vick quite a bit of time for the pit bull incident. What did he get? Like about 2 years or so?
He got 2 years.
Something like that. So,
man. Yeah, I just...
Now, what's running through your head?
Why do that?
Yeah, let me just grab this bird.
And, I could see it if it was a cat in his neighbor who was tearing his trash out. Then by all means, swing that cat like a catapult.
Yeah, you're on your own on this one, dude.
I know. And listen, I'm ready for this.
Here's your shovel. Keep digging.
I'm going to get that shovel out. Because I got to tell you, animal lovers are a special breed of people, and I know there's people that love dogs and cats and stuff like that. I'm just not one of them. And I think I've had it where, my ex-wife, my mother, all my family are big animal lovers. I mean, my mom's a dog. She's had dogs for forever. She's always, not 1, 3. She's got a poodle right now that's 20-something years old. It's blind. It's got like a tooth left.
Right.
All right? It's like that dog in that sitcom with Michael J. Fox when he was he was working for the mayor of New York. What was that called? Do you even remember?
Spin Zone or Spin City?
Spin City. It was like that dog that wanted to die, that pug, and the black gay guy would.
Okay, now truth in lending clause here. Deuce never saw Spin City, so I had no idea what you're talking about.
All right. So they had a pug there that was like really, really old and wanted to die. And this dog, I mean, it's the same thing. I used to say to my mom, why don't you put that dog down? And she's like, she knows what she's doing. She can't see. She goes outside, she can eat.
Bumping into
She's
stuff.
not in pain. Yeah, I don't know. But anyhow, my mom keeps the dog alive. Here, something happens to the dog. My mom will go to the dog, spend $600, $700, $800 at the vet. John's dogs had $300 limits. I'd have the dog fixed. It was $300. 301. It's going for the big sleep.
Yeah, time for the.
I'm just. Yeah. I'm not going for that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like. I don't know. I mean, I like animals. We've had cats.
You had cats.
We're a family of cat lovers. Our family.
Right.
And, it's not that I dislike dogs. I'd never owned one. There's a lot of dogs I've liked. But, when people, I don't know, I just see some people that are like just malicious and they're just like, there's a cat, I'm going to shoot it. And then they, it's just like, yeah, dude, can't you just go out with the hose, squirt it? I mean, if you invite a crocodile to your house and it acts like a crocodile, are you really going to be surprised? It's what dogs do. They're going to.
That's true.
They're going to crap on your lawn, and cats are going to piss in your garden,
tear out your trash.
It's just like, generally cats generally, unless you're throwing like a lot of fish out or something, but.
Oh no!
Dog. We had a bigger problem here with not pets but wild animal raccoons, squirrels. Yeah. Raccoons are and they scare the shit out of me.
They're big.
Well,
they're
they are big. And a few years ago, I went out in my backyard, and I keep all my trash in the garage, so it's impervious to critters. But there was a raccoon tumbling around the backyard around 11 o'clock, and Joe had the same situation a few years ago at his house, at his last house. You see a raccoon in broad daylight, that's rabies. So
Right.
and that's exactly what it was. So that's not fun. They frighten me.
Right, and they should. So there's a place around me. There's a park. It's about a mile from me. It's right on the river. It's really nice, and I go down there, get a cup of coffee, listen to some podcasts, do my email down there and stuff like that. I kind of like it down there. Here's what happens. The dog people come down there, and they think, oh, well, it's a great place to walk their dog. Well, it is a great place to walk their dog. What they do is they walk their dog, and if it's a male dog, every post, every upright thing, they pee on.
It's like Jack Nicholson. And
right. So what happens is they're peeing all over the pole. Now, I think I probably went on a rant like this before, but, it gets on my nerves because you go down there and these dogs are peeing, and then what happens, they crap, and of course they have the little baggies they bring. Oh, we clean it up. No, you don't. You don't get it all off the grass. And then I'm sitting there watching kids play out there in the grass, and they're running around, sliding around in the grass, and I'm like, oh, my God, they're sliding around in dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, so why don't you just keep your dogs out of the park area? Like, this place is huge. There's all kinds of nature trails and other kind of trails. You can go up there and walk your dogs across that. The dog, if there's a little poop up there or something like that, no one's going to bother. Why come down to where it's really, really nice?
Yeah, but
have your dogs come over there and use it like a stinking lavatory.
But the flip side to that is, and like I said, I've never owned a dog, but since I don't know what they do around the country, but here in New Jersey, since they passed the clean up after your dog aspect, and they opened a lot of the towns opened up dog parks.
Dog park's a different story.
Right, but
you want to take your dog to a dog park? Hey, have at it. Right. I'm all for dog parks.
But what I'm saying, since they enacted all that stuff, I mean, when we were kids, if you didn't step in dog shit at least once a week,
you're for this?
No.
You're for stepping in dog shit? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm saying years and years ago, it was common. It was like in your front yard. You would be walking to school. There was dog shit everywhere on the sidewalks. Right. It was on the grass. And they've enacted those. You know what? I'm probably jinxing myself saying this, but I can't even remember the last time I stepped in dog shit, but it's got to be decades because they've enacted a lot of this stuff. I think for the most part, from what I see, I will say that some dog owners become bird watchers. And when a dog's shitting on your yard, they're mysteriously looking in the sky for birds and UFOs, and hey, and then they go deaf and they can't hear you. But
also the dog goes on point.
But I would have to say that I think that probably about like 95% of the dog owners, right, at least where I live here in my development, are pretty conscientious. And I never see it around. I just don't. Now, I don't go to parks like you do, so that could be a different kettle of fish. I don't know.
Right. So anyhow, I was perusing Facebook, and I saw this video, and it was a dog that walked up to an electric fence, lifted its leg, peed, and got shocked, and went and ran away. Now, it didn't kill the dog. It was just a fence shock. It's not that big of a deal. So, of course, you know me, I share that with the West Effort Town Talk, and I put it in there. I said, they should do this with the benches and the poles over there down down there at the park. And then this one lady, she...
So this clearly escalated.
Of course it escalated.
I didn't know where you were going with this.
So of course, this lady says, if this amuses you, then you're a sick person. And I just said, hey, I just wish the dogs would stop lifting their leg and peeing on everything down at the park. So then people got in there and stuff like that. So, of course, the offended, then after that, she goes over and she starts her own post. She goes, administration, videos of animal cruelty and people being amused by it should not be allowed on this site. It's disgusting and alarming. It's disgusting and alarming. And if this behavior is permitted to continue, see post, quotation marks, don't whiz on this. So, of course, I see that and I go in and I comment, crybaby. So I send her a crybaby.
Oh my God! Some people got too much goddamn time on their hands. They really do.
Oh, me
hey,
too.
What's going on in the Middle East? Who cares? Some guy posted a video of a dog getting his cock electrocuted, and I got a comment on that. Yeah, life's too short. Truth is stranger than fiction. You just can't make this stuff up.
Look, Spot's over there peeing on it.
You know what? So, not only, Yeah, they put those electric fences up. There's no I bet she's a vegetarian too, or something.
Oh no, she probably eats meat like a hog.
Well, cows bump up against and horses bump up against.
That's why they have electric fences to keep them inside,
right? And they bump up against them, and they're fine. They don't get.
That's horrible, dude. Yeah. That's horrible. Yeah. Why do they have to do that? The cows teach the cows to stay inside the fence. The problem is the cows don't want to stay inside the fence, and if they realize that they're big enough to push the fence down, guess where they're going to be out? On the street. And I hope this lady comes around the corner in her brand new Priya and smashes right into the damn thing.
Yeah, well, that's just like you said, because if it's like The Walking Dead, you get enough cows pushing up against that fence, I assure you, it's coming down.
Hey, in this area, there's farmland, and there's some cows and stuff around. And I remember one time going down the street, and there was a cow. Right, it was like, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night.
Occasionally they get out.
Yeah, they're sitting right in the middle of the road. I don't know why the cow's in the middle of the road. I have no idea. There's no grass there to eat. You would think maybe it was, looking for some grass to eat or something. Just standing in the middle of the road, kind of hanging out and say, hey, you know what? What's this black stuff? It's kind of neat.
Yeah. Probably felt good on his hoofs, I guess. Her hoofs, I guess. I don't know. Just like hot hoofs.
Yeah, but I mean, the offended, they come out.
Oh, yeah, well, they're...
I'm offended.
Yeah.
I was offended and I have rights.
Lady.
Now, what compelled you to put that on the West Deptford Post instead of the regular Facebook at large?
Well, because
now you've got a narrower audience there. You know you're going to like chap somebody's ass.
You know something? I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Yeah, well,
it wasn't like somebody was hitting a dog with a cattle prod.
Right.
It was just the dog just went up and beep, and then the dog was like, "What was that?" And I thought it was kind of funny. It was good.
It was funny. I think I know the video you're talking. There's a lot.
Well, if you want to see the video, just go to facebook.com/brandx.
Okay.
Podcast.
Good news.
Facebook.com/brandx podcast, and I put the video over there. So all you haters, all you animal lovers, go over there and tell me what a jerk off I am.
So I guess if she was upset about that, then that video that I post every year with the squirrel being flung off the with the skeet shooter, that still makes me. That's a classic. I like
the one where
I love that video.
The guy's got like bungee cords or some kind of big rubber band.
Yeah, and
he's got a colander. And he's putting nuts inside the colander, and the squirrel comes up and gets in that colander, and man, he cuts that thing loose, and that squirrel goes flying through the air.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, the offended boy. Woo.
Yeah, they bounce back. It's just,
that squirrel wasn't even hurt.
Yeah, in England, they're hunting the hell out of I didn't notice the gray squirrel is an American squirrel, and somehow they got loose in England.
I wonder how. Someone took a pet over there and
some jackass bought, or maybe they were on a ship, because they are rats with fuzzy tails. Well, they're
tree rats. We used to call them tree rats. But go ahead.
Well, they're decimating the red squirrel population, which are kind of like they're
taking over.
Yeah, they're like, because they're bigger, they're more aggressive, and the red squirrel has a completely different diet, but the gray squirrel is just like a scavenger. So
we're over here, we brought the gray squirrel over there. We're taking over.
Yeah, it's just like, it's like crazy.
The gangster American squirrels.
I remember you telling a story years ago. It was an epic story. Somebody you knew bought an abandoned potato chip factory, and you had to wipe out the rats.
Oh,
that was an epic story.
All right, you want to hear the story?
Oh, sure do. It's only been 20 years since I heard it. I can't remember it clearly, but I remembered it enough to be impressed.
All right, so back in 1982, my father sold his business to a company up in Quakertown, and it used to be an old potato chip factory. So what happened is one day the potato chip factory went out of business, and what they did was they just locked the doors. They came in and locked the doors. Potato chips the product was still, in boxes on pallets waiting to go out.
Oh, wow.
Big giant pallets of potatoes were in the storage area waiting to be made into potato chips. Potato chips were still on the conveyor belt in various ways of production.
So they probably had like vegetable oil still
fat, in the oil, fat was still in there. So they buy this building for, I don't know, whatever, probably a dime and a song. And they had to go in there and get all this stuff out of here because they were going to make it a machine shop. Well, they walked in there and there was enough rats. There was rats in there. It was body counts that you can't even imagine. So what would happen was everybody would carry like a .22 pistol on your side, and in the pistol would have it wasn't like a slug. It was like a shotgun shell,
like a snake gun,
like a shotgun shell. So It would have pellets in it. So what would happen is you would go in the morning and you would walk in there, and everybody would walk in real quiet. You would like stand back to back, and they would turn the lights on, and those rats would start running, and you would start shooting them, like, and you would shoot. I don't know how many they would shoot. So then they would take the forklifts, and they were trying to take the pallets of potato chips out and stuff like that, and the rats had tunneled through all these things. I mean, there was thousands of rats, the size of cats. They were the biggest rats I've ever seen. And then you'd be working, like you'd be wiring something or cleaning something or something, and one would like scurry by, and you would just pull your gun off there, and you would take and shoot.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, and I ski rats.
So yeah, it was all of a sudden, you'd be sitting there working on something, you'd see something move out of the corner of your eye, you'd turn around, pull your gun, and there you go, another one. And you would throw it on a pile. Yeah. And it was crazy.
How long did it take you to like...
you know what? I don't even remember. But here was the thing. They figured they were all outside, too. They were all burrowed in the ground outside in holes and everything. They had no idea how they were going to get these rats out of here. And the one guy, he was an old guy. I can't even remember his name now, but he was one of those old guys. He was the head of maintenance there. I can't think of his name now. Anyhow, he came up with this idea. What he did was he got a pipe. He put a hose on the back of his car pipe, and he took all that carbon monoxide and put it down in the holes. Wow. And he did that, and I think he let the car run out there for whatever, and that was it. Once the carbon monoxide or whatever it is goes down in those holes, the rats don't want anything to do with them, and they come out, and that was it. They were done. But it took months to get rid of those rats. And when it first went out there, you would just, like what happened is you would take a forklift with long forks, and the guy would get on the forklift, and he would pick up like this pound of potatoes. And it was like a pallet, stacked three high. And he would pick them up, and he'd start backing up with them, and these rats would come flying out of this pallet.
Right.
Like they would leap out of it like they were leaping from a sinking ship. Ugh. And people were standing on the sides of them, almost like the Germans back in the day, and they were just shooting them.
Jesus Christ.
So, this is going to be, I'll tell you what, if you're an animal lover, I'm sure you're going by now.
I remember you telling this story. That's how long ago, and you were telling it down at the shore, and we were down in Avalon.
Mm-hmm.
And, your dad was there. And I remember him saying, somebody was saying, it was like the Indiana Jones movie. It's like, was the floor moving or something? Is there a fan on down there or something? Because there were so many rats. It was like a...
Yeah, they were all over. There was, when you took the vats out, there was tunnels through the grease. They tunneled through the grease. Yeah. And it was the potato chips. They were in the boxes of potato chips. They tunneled into that, and they were eating them. I mean, they were well-fed rats.
And they reproduce so fast.
It's amazing.
I think like within 12 weeks, they're into the next generation. They're ready to go again. I mean, God damn. It would probably cost you a fortune to bring an exterminator in to do that.
Well, yeah, they were just bringing the stuff out. They wanted to get all that stuff out, and I can't remember how they got rid of it. I almost want to say they put it in the middle of the field and set it on fire. I think it was back, back then you could do that back there.
Right.
They took all those crates and everything and set them on fire. I'm not sure if there was any rats inside there.
Who cares?
Who cares? Listen. I don't want to burn a rat to death. That's a horrible way to die. Yeah. But you try to get them where you would, you try to shoot them where you would be able to, get them humanely. I'm not into making animals suffer. But then again, I was also a hunter. I'll tell you what, I've eaten a lot of squirrel. Squirrel's very, back to the squirrel thing. Squirrel's pretty good eating. To be quite honest,
is it like everything else on the planet? It tastes like friggin' chicken.
No, it's not really. It doesn't taste
like
chicken.
Frank Purdue must be pretty pissed off.
It has its own unique taste. It's a little bit more
ratty,
maybe
rat-like.
Maybe. That's one thing I haven't eaten. I haven't eaten a muskrat or a rat. I've had squirrel, rabbit, pheasant, quail, deer.
Well, I could see
buffalo.
the bird thing, even though I've never had pheasant or quail, but I understand it because I have had chicken and turkey, and I understand it'll be a little wild or gamey tasting. But
I tell you what, not pheasant. It's just as good as chicken. Yeah. Here's another story. When I was living up in Quakertown, I was on my way, I guess, home from work. And it was like 4:00 in the afternoon, and I come ripping around a corner in my Monte Carlo, and all of a sudden I come around a corner, and there was this pheasant. I didn't even get to the brake. Pow! And all I saw was feathers. There's feathers in the rearview mirror and everything. So I'm like, oh, man. So I back up, and I'm looking around for this bird, and I can't find it. And all of a sudden I look over in the side there, and there's a big pile of leaves, and I see 1 foot sticking up. So I was like, oh, look at this. So I go over.
Free pheasant.
I grab him. I throw him in the back seat of the car, and off I go. So I get home, and I'm sitting there, and I'm cleaning it. My dad comes home. He goes, where'd you get the pheasant? I said, I hit him with the car. He goes, oh, good for dinner, huh? Only we cooked him up and ate him.
If I ever go take up turkey hunting, I don't need to buy a shotgun because I find the black Chevy Impalas do the job just as well.
Well, bruises the meat, though. That's the problem.
Well, I had an 04 Impala, which my son is driving now, and I hit a turkey with that. And then I bought a 2011 Impala, and I hit a turkey with that. And I knocked out the right headlight on the 04. I knocked out the left headlight on the 11. So basically, against turkeys, Impalas are 2-0. So,
did you eat them?
Nah, fuck that. I ain't eating them.
What'd you do? You didn't eat them?
Ah, dude, how good were they going to be? I was doing like 65 miles an hour. It's probably a bag of gravy.
No, that's not true. I'll tell you what.
I don't even know where they were. The one turkey I did see, I looked in my rearview mirror, and it looked like a cigar just rolling in the gutter. It was just turning and turning. I mean, those dopey things are like albatrosses. They take like, 30, 40 yards to get – they got to take a running start.
Yeah.
And they got airborne just –
Did you hit them?
Oh, yeah. There's no way I was not going to hit them. They broke through the tree. There's a section – I hit both turkeys at the same spot about 2 years apart.
Yeah.
And it's in a valley. There's trees right up to the asphalt on both sides. And there's houses that with driveways that go off. Presto, there they are. There's no way you're going to miss them.
Anyhow, I got a story, another story for you. Here we go. So, the Jimmy.
It's the Jimmy. Oh, Jimmy, what do you do? It's the
All right, so the Jimmy's father, my Uncle Tony, we call him Big T. Big T used to work down in Salem. There's a nuclear plant down in Salem. So,
really?
Yeah. So he used to go down to Salem, and he was a painter down there. So what he would do was he would always pay attention on his way down. And if he was coming on his way home and there was a dead deer on the side of the road and it was wintertime, he knew that deer was still good. So we would throw it in the back of the Chevy Nova that he would drive down there.
Nova! The great white hunter.
And he would bring it back, and we would have it slaughtered. I'm telling you something. I think we had roadkill this year. I think we had roadkill deer. I like venison. I do like venison. So anyhow, it was hit by a car. Now, in this heat, if one gets hit, it blows up. It goes bad real quick.
Right.
But like in the wintertime, if you knew that when you went there, it wasn't there, and you came back, it was there, you knew it was still good. So he'd throw that thing right in the back of the old Nova, bring it back, and we'd have it cut up, and you'd have venison burgers and steaks and chops.
Make yourself a sandwich.
I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than a venison chip steak sandwich where they take this, they make it like chip steak. You make it like a cheesesteak. You throw some red onion, some green pepper, some American cheese. Man, that's it. Now that's a sandwich.
You would hear a good deer story. There's a guy I work with, and I'm not going to mention his name, but the story is legendary. And we were leaving work. He was relatively new. Well, his father works there as well. So they're driving home together, and the guy in front of him hits a deer, and the deer didn't get killed immediately, and it's kind of flopping around out there. He's flailing and everything. So he's going to be, I'm going to take care of this deer, and we're going to have deer for dinner now because, I work with a lot of hunters,
Right.
So he goes down there, and he pulls out this big, gigantic K-bar knife, okay?
I already know what's going to happen. It's not going to be pretty.
So he gets the deer by the head, and he's like stretching his neck back like a Navy SEAL. He's going to dispatch the deer.
Right.
And at the last minute, the deer like twitched and flailed and kicked its leg up, and he stabbed himself in the forearm, like deep, like really epically deep. So now he's bleeding. The deer's bleeding. It's still alive, And they're like, oh. So he had to go to the hospital. And I think he wound up getting stitches, but he had to get a tetanus shot because it was deer blood on the knife.
Sure.
Yeah, when he stabbed himself, and, he wound up missing a couple of days' work. So every once in a while, he's like the lovable mascot of the place. He's just always has there's 1,000 stories like that about this guy. He's a great guy and everything. He's funny as hell, but he just has a million stories like that.
Do you want to hear my story? Okay, I have a story like this. So we go down to South Carolina to go hunting. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and you go. What happens is you go in a pickup truck, and in the back of the pickup truck, like right on the back of the bed, there's benches, and we sit in the bench with our guns, and we're ready to go, and we're getting ready to go. So we're driving to where we're going to be put in tree stands. We go down the road about 40, 50 mile an hour, and all of a sudden I'm looking up, and I see this doe go across the street in front of us, and I'm like, uh-oh. And with that, I see this big buck chasing her. Well, this buck runs right into the door of the truck. Now, I'm sitting there. I duck down. I can feel the deer's body brush over my back. Okay, so it brushes. I look to my left, and I see this deer spinning like in air with like four, like looks like an X. Okay, it's like this, and it's like tumbling, right?
Right.
So it hits the road, and they go, "Holy cow, did you see that?" And I was see it. It hit me. So they go, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." So they go, "Okay, John, go out there and kill it."
What are you, like Tarzan?
No, yeah, go out and see if it's dead. Okay? John has the same knife as your buddy. All right? Big giant buck knife. So John gets out of the back of the truck, and John goes walking over there. So I go walking over, and I go over to where I'm just about ready to grab the antlers to see if he's alive or dead. And this thing sticks its head straight up. And I was like, and they're like, "Stab it." I'm like, "Stab it? Fuck you." So I start heading back. I'm like, "Give me my rifle." So I go back to get my rifle. With that, the deer jumps up, goes crashing into the woods, and we never saw it again. We went back later to try to find it,
right.
Because it was bleeding. We tried to track it and everything. Never found it. Never found that deer. Wow. But they're like, "Stab it." I'm like, "Who am I? Daniel Boone over here?" I'm a South Jersey numbnut. Whatever, you kidding me?
Remember we went on the Tioga. Here's a great Don story. Me and Joe always talk about it because it's legendary. So remember we went on the winter trip, the first winter trip that we went on that we brought the girls to.
Yes.
Okay, it was a great trip. Okay, so,
I was there.
Yeah, it was because we went on a couple of winter trips before that.
Or I knew about it.
Yeah, and no, you were there. You were, it was Joe.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, right.
Joe and Don and me and you and
Joe Kemble. Yeah,
the deer god. Yeah, and I got a picture of that. But so we're driving up there.
All right, we spoke French. Now I have to tell everybody what the deer god is.
Well, I have to post a picture of the deer god.
Now we have to post a picture of the deer god and tell the story.
Well, let me tell my story first.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm driving the 1988 Ford Taurus that I had. It was my company car. So it's me.
Everything with you is by car.
Well, that's my point of reference.
No one cares. Go ahead. Just tell the story, will you?
I'm giving people.
I'm telling the deer stuff. Tell the deers.
Don't make me invoke cars. So I'm driving. Don's in the passenger seat, and in the back it's Camille and Karen. I want to say it might. No, it might have been Kathy, but it could have been Grey Wolf. Because he was
you
up.
Could tell.
Yeah, well, he was up everyone's ass like an open umbrella. So,
okay.
But
we talked about Grey Wolf before. He's like a little Smurf.
Yeah, he's a little. Yeah. But anyway, so we're driving up there, and there's this dead deer laying on the side of the road, and he's been there for quite some time. I mean, he's bloated, and he looks like a sawhorse. Because his legs are like sticking straight out. Oh yeah, like
looks like the horse in Animal House.
Yeah, so exactly. So So Camille goes, "Oh, look at that," and I said, "Oh, he's not dead. He's just sleeping." And Camille, with this glimmer of hope in her voice, goes, "Really?" And then Tom goes, "Oh, what are they, like fucking rattlesnakes now? They just lie on the road to get the warmth off the asphalt?" And then that's when Camille and Karen and Kathy, if that's who it was, realized that the deer was indeed dead.
Oh, a wise guy, eh?
Don cutting right to the chase.
All right, so the deer god. So we go up to this Tioga County where Don's trailer was.
Little Marsh.
And we go up there, and we're with this guy, Campbell. So they have these traditions that they do, and one is the deer god.
Actually, you were there for the birth of the deer god. Actually.
Oh, that was the very first time?
Oh, yeah, that was when the deer god first made its...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
So anyhow... Oh, okay. So what the tradition was, as soon as you got into the cabin, you had to go over to the Electrola TV console
stereo
with the record player in the top of it. You lifted up the lid, and you immediately put in Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass. And they would all run around and they would all dance, like this bunch of guys all dancing. And this is the first time I've been with these guys. I'm like,
drunk and dancing.
Yeah, so they're dancing, and then Campbell, I guess I'm allowed to use his name. Sorry, Joe, if I'm not. So Joe goes over, and there's a deer head on the wall. So he takes and he pulls his shirt up, and he puts the deer head in there, and he starts dancing like the deer. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but what happened? The record player started to slow down.
Yes.
Right?
It must have had a belt problem. Because it was probably belt driven.
Right, so it started slowing down. So then he would start dancing like real slow, and then also it would speed up, and he started speeding up as he was dancing. And he would just dance around, and then at one point it was slowing down so much he took his hands and he put them on his hips like he was like mad. Yeah. It was hysterical.
Well, that dance he was wearing the nightgown.
The red
nightgown.
It was a nightgown. It was a nightgown.
Yeah, it was Don's mother's winter flannel nightgown.
Stop it.
Yeah.
He did not have Pat's nightgown on.
Yes, he did.
That's hysterical. This is something I did not know.
I'm going to go get it right now. I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove you wrong.
Well, you got to drop that picture in there now, because now we got to put it in the show notes. So if you want to see what a picture of the deer god looks like, so go over to brandxpodcast.com/015. You'll be able to see a picture of the deer god. So anyhow, once you guys like a bunch of maniacs are running around dancing at the Tijuana Taxi now.
Can you see my screen?
No, I can't see your screen. Of course, they'll never let you. For some reason, Google Hangouts, whenever we get this, I have the small screen or something like that.
Right.
It will not let you share your screen.
Because I got the deer god all queued up.
Well, I know what the deer god looks like, but we'll have to show the listeners.
Okay. I'm looking at it now. It's like so ridiculous.
I can't believe you put Pat's nightgown on.
Yeah, it's always the magic of Joe. That's what he did.
Oh, my goodness. That was crazy. Boy, I tell you what, we went really off in the weeds today.
Yeah. Which is another great podcast.
Well, thank you. That's a podcast I do with Jessica Kupperman, and we do that once a week, too. So,
changing the subject now?
I was looking for that. I don't have it up here.
Changing the subject now.
It actually leads into a story that I saw today, and I kind of wanted to talk to you about this.
Okay.
Today's men are not nearly as strong as their dads were, researchers say. I know that I wasn't as strong as my father was. That never happened.
Well, in what dynamic are they measuring at? In physical strength?
Yeah, physical strength. I would say by their grip and by what they can lift. That men of the same age 30 years ago, like say a 30-year-old to get today and a 30-year-old that was 60 today but 30 years ago,
right?
They had more grip strength and more pinch strength. And that's because they used to actually work with their hands and work with tools. And, you know, nowadays, kids don't really learn how to work with tools. Like, there's a lot of people out there that don't even know how to hold a wrench.
No, they don't know what a wrench is.
They don't even know how to... There's a technique to be able to hold a wrench. And, you know, you have to learn that to be able to, you know, use a wrench or a screwdriver or something like that. And I guess kids today, there's just not enough things that are being used, not enough tools being used. Kids are not learning how to do stuff. Not all kids, but a majority. They would say back in the day, men would be able to use the grip strength of 117 pounds. Men of today, 98 pounds. Now, wow. A lot of men today, a lot of kids, young people today, like they have office jobs or whatever they do, but they're still lifting weights and they're still working out and stuff like that. So I can't see that. But I don't think they do the grip strength. You know, they might be able to lift and curl and stuff like that, but I don't think they're doing that whole grabbing thing.
Right.
Like they used to be, like back in the day, you'd have to hold on to a wrench or grab a hold of something while you're working on it. And they just don't have that same grip strength. Now, my grandfather, he didn't have hands. He had paws. Like you could take a $50 and drop it through his ring finger, like his ring. That's how big his ring was for his ring finger. And he would grab a hold of you, and you couldn't get loose. Like he actually had like these big giant sausage hands. And it was like if you went to, and I had pretty big hands myself. And my grandfather would go to shake your hand, and it would just like muffle your whole hand.
Just engulf your hand.
Yeah, engulf your hand. And they would grab it and squeeze it and try to break your knuckles. So he said, come here, shake my hand. I'm like, Pop, I'm not shaking your hand. You're not breaking my knuckles. And he'd get this big smile on his face.
Yeah, but I wonder how many kids today, seem to be even interested in that anyway, because
we talked about the thing about making a go-kart, out of wood and stuff like that, or taking bikes, finding bikes and rebuilding them and using tools for stuff like that. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is
nobody fixes their cars anymore. You can't.
Yeah, well, some of the stuff you can do. I mean, there's a friend of mine. The husband was convinced that everything had to be done through a dealership only, which they're going to rape you. I mean, they're going to.
I got to get a sound effect for that. But go ahead.
They got to be like charging like what $100 an hour just to do like regular maintenance. So one of their cars had a serpentine belt, and the car had like 150,000 miles on it. It was making a squeaking noise, and I said, "Yeah, well, you need a new serpentine belt." So I took it to the dealership, and they told him it was going to be like $250. And I was like, "You are crazy if you spend that kind of money for a serpentine belt." And it's, "Yeah, but it's making a squeak." I says, "Yeah, well, you got a lot of miles on the car. All the car needs is a tension pulley and a new serpentine belt." So we loaded them up in the car. We went to Napa. And
Napa,
I think,
know-how.
Yeah, I think the belt might have been like $40.
Right.
And the tension pulley was like $28.
So you put a new tension pulley on it, or did you get the thing that pulled the tensioner?
Yeah, no, a tension pulley. You just take it off, put a new tension pulley on, and then you put the belt on. To pull the tension off, you just inserted a wrench. General Motors cars, anyway, I'm sure the other car companies do the same thing. You just pull it back, you get the thing on, thread it the right way according to the diet. Yeah, well, don't do it when the engine's running, boys and girls. So you didn't need those fingers. But, the moral of the story is, I says, that's all it was. I says, now, we did this for less than like $70.
Right.
And the dealership was going to charge you like $200 and plus. Mm-hmm. And they would have had your car like it's only like a 20-minute job, if that. And most of that was just waiting for the engine to cool down so that we could get in there and touch it. So, but
they make these cars nowadays, everything is a special tool. Now,
yeah.
Listen.
Well, like with the two aforementioned turkeys smashing my headlights out, I had to buy two complete assemblies because all the headlight is there. It's not like the old days where you went to Pep Boys, bought a sealed beam and popped it in there.
No,
that ship sailed. Now you're buying a $290 light unit,
right?
And it comes with everything, and that's what you have to do. So you're kind of stuck.
Right. So I had to put a radiator in my pickup truck.
Oh, God bless you.
Well, the thing was that you just couldn't use regular hand tools.
No, Torx bits. And
yeah, there was like all kinds of, hold on, you need this special tool for that. Oh, hold on, you need this clamp for that. Oh, hold on, you need this. It was crazy. I mean, it took me, I was working with my cousin and stuff like that. And thank God, he's been an auto mechanic for 40 years now. But, he has all the tools. He has an awesome set of tools. And, he helped me with it, but I felt like a boob. I couldn't even put a radiator in my own truck by myself.
Yeah. Then that's a pretty big job. You got to drain and flush.
I mean, there was really nothing. I mean, it was right there. It wasn't
the
really
older
that big
cars
of a deal.
were easier to work on, and not just because they were
they
older.
had room.
Well, they were mechanical. And,
right.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Like my father used to say, they don't make the cars like they used to. And I used to say, well, thank Christ that they don't, because I mean, say what you want, but the new cars do last a lot longer now.
Right.
I mean, you would never, if you had a 150,000 mile car 30 years ago, it looked like it had been to hell and back. It was rusted out. The one window wouldn't roll up. It would overheat. It was. But now
you'd start losing stuff like the water pump.
Right. Now they do last a lot longer, but the other aspect of that is the reason those cars were so easy to work on and fix is because they were mechanical.
Right.
It was a carburetor. It wasn't a computerized fuel injection module. What are you going to do? I can't fix that. It's just,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I know.
Well, and we all, as kids driving, when we started driving, if you didn't have a basic tool set with you, you also had jumper cables and you carried every belt that was required to make that engine run because you had 4 or 5 belts.
Bumper belt.
Right. You had an alternator belt, air conditioner belt, water pump belt, fan belt. now they got one belt running everything, which is great, except if it goes,
you lose everything.
Yeah, you're
power
now you're
steering,
calling,
your
now you're calling AAA if you've got it. So you're
if you
dead
had
in the water.
a serpentine belt and you had the light to be able to get in there, you could replace one on the road.
Yeah,
but it's not like back in the day. Back in the day, we would go. Sometimes you'd have to take the belt tensioner off, or if you're out on the road or something like that, you would take the belt and you'd put a screwdriver there, and you'd hold it, and then you'd figure out which way the motor was going to turn. If it was going to turn clockwise or counterclockwise, I can't remember which way it used to go.
Yeah, well, each belt would run a different way.
No,
depending.
Oh, okay. So what I would take the screwdriver and I would hold it, and I would say, "Okay, tap it," and they would tap it, and the motor would turn, and you would take the screwdriver and hold it, and they would bump the belt off. That was bump a belt. So, and always, like if you had 3 belts, the one on the inside would go. So you have to bump the 2 belts off. Then you would take the third belt, and you would bump that one on. Then you would bump the other 2 belts on. Then you could go again. Right. And we used to call that bump a belt.
Yeah.
The Jimmy knows all about that.
And the other thing you had to have carbon choke cleaner.
Right.
Starter
fluid.
Yeah, that's what you needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, like, the first thing you heard, the first cold day, the first seriously cold day, in up and down every house on your street, you would hear, like, because, it wasn't electronic fuel injection like it is now. We just get in, hop in, and go.
Pump it. You used to get in there, pump the gas a couple times, and go.
But if the temperature dropped rapidly, like that first seriously cold morning, it took 20, 25 minutes to get your car started. And then you had to let it like idle and run for like another 15 before you were going anywhere. So,
go in there, you take a screwdriver, you'd open up the butterflies.
Right.
You'd spray this starter fluid in there, you start it up, and every once in a while you get a backfire through. It would singe the hair off your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could change the plugs without barking your knuckles on something, without burning the palms of your hands.
I bet you there's some vehicles out now you can't even get to the back plugs.
Well, now the plugs last 100,000 miles because of that, because they're so damn hard to get to.
Right.
There was a friend of mine. He had and everybody, they built a gazillion of these cars. If you had a 77 to 79 Camaro or Firebird with the V8 and air conditioning, to get to the back plug, you had to jack the front of the car up and let the wheel, I think it was the right wheel, the passenger wheel, and you had to let that hang. And then you got space. You had to get under the car from there and get that plug out. Now, talk about saying a novena before you went. I mean, and back then we used to have bumper jacks, and like Genghis used to say, some other jackass killed themselves changing the oil on their car. Yeah, because what people would do is they would jack the car up and not put blocks underneath the frame or jack stands, and they would just get under there.
And the jack would fall out.
Yeah, and it would just fall on them.
And what do we call that?
That's called the cleansing the gene pool.
That's right.
I didn't want to say Clancy Brown. I didn't want to screw up 2 weeks in a row.
Oh, my goodness. But, so we had so we went back. I don't even know where we are right now, Deuce. We went off on such a tangent.
Well, the kids today, they don't have the grip strength. And I could see, you know what? There was the really coolest stores in the planet. The last one that I know of just closed. It was on Route 73 in Berlin. It was the Sears hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There used to be 3 of them in this area.
Right.
Okay. And all 3 of them are closed now. So now if you want to get tools for like Craftsman tools or whatever, which as far as hand tools go, I still think they're the best.
Well, they're the best for
hand tools.
The common man.
Right.
I would use Snap-on or
if you
Mac.
want wrenches, right, exactly.
Right.
If you want specialty, then you're talking. But if you just need stuff that'll get you through life,
Yeah.
And you got the lifetime guarantee on it. But now if you want those, you got to go to like a Sears store.
Yeah.
And, a lot of them, the one in the Deptford Mall is actually pretty decent, but the one in the Moorestown Mall is sorely lacking as far as their choice.
When I took my elevator test and I became a mechanic had to have their own tools. So what happened was the guys would give you like a list. Okay, this is what you need. So you would go to as soon as you took your mechanics test and as soon as you took your mechanics test and passed, you would go to the Sears and you'd get the the toolbox that opened in the top and had 3 drawers in the front. And you get 2 sets of wrenches, a set of screwdrivers.
Metric and SAE.
No metric.
Oh,
There's
really?
no metric on elevators. Well, there wasn't back then. Then you would get Allen wrenches, and you'd get they gave you a meter. So I guess that's
probably a couple of pair of pliers.
Pliers, needle nose, pliers, wire strippers, stuff like that. And you would get that, you would buy all that, and you'd come with your brand new toolbox to work. You'd come in with your brand new toolbox. But that's, but back then, and you worked on the elevator with hand tools. I'm not even sure now. Oh, sockets too. I'm not even sure now if you're working on elevators, would you still use hand tools? I guess you still have to.
Well, there's probably a lot of old elevators out there.
Well, yeah, the old elevators, true. That's true. But like the newer ones now, not even 100% sure. It's been a while. It's been almost 10 years since I've been out of the business.
Wow, really? It's been that long?
Well, no. Actually, 5 years since I've been out of the maintenance. Well, 5 years since I've been out. I was a supervisor. 5 years since I've been a supervisor, but probably 10 years since, or almost 10, since I was working on them. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm sure everything was changing back then, but that was about the last thing you could use hand tools on was elevators.
It's probably why they last so damn long, because it's just basic.
Well, I'll tell you what, the older
mechanics.
They were, they used to say the older elevators, they were made back when men were men, and let me try that again. They used to say the old ones were made when men were men, and the rails were made out of wood, because back in the day, elevator rails were made out of wood. They're made out of steel now.
Right.
But, so the older ones were real beefy. Now, everything is they try to make it more
lightweight,
the lighter the weight. And they try to get away with less material, stuff like that. So
they're the ones where I work at. They're a swinging pain in the ass.
Well, the problem with your elevators is it takes an act of Congress to get in there to work on them.
Yeah, well.
That's the problem. What they need to do is they need to have 3 elevator mechanics in there at all time. A team, 2 mechanics and an apprentice. They're and they're there all day. Okay? And then they go, and that's what they need, but they won't do that because that costs too much money.
Right.
So
because they'll just say, "Well, we got stairs." That's their. I'll take the stairs.
Yeah, until you got to get something upstairs. Until you got to get some equipment upstairs.
Well, the big problem, and I had described it to you, and you knew exactly what it was. And he says, "Well, it's because there's an air pressure problem there." And I says, "Wow,
doors won't shut."
Yeah, well, that's it. There's a couple. If the elevators, boy, now we're talking about elevators.
See, we're all over the place tonight.
Yeah, if there's 2 doors that will meet in the center,
those
those ones tend to be okay for the most part. But when they just have the one door that goes across the whole area, like in Star Trek,
single speed side slide.
Yeah,
door.
it's like it just kind of just doesn't have enough.
Well, what happens is, here's the story. What happens is that there's so much pressure that when the doors open and they go to shut, there's so much air trying to rush through that door that air pressure keeps the door from closing. That's the problem.
Right.
So that's
and there is a lot of delta P, they call that, delta pressure, all over the place. And
but I could fix that in about 2 seconds. You have the thing it's called, it's a cable that's on a spring.
But they won't fix it, because what you told me is you'd have to have that door close incredibly fast and hard.
Right.
And where I work, that'll never fly because they're afraid of people suing.
Right.
Because there's always some bastard out there just it knocked me on my ass. I have to sue. I'm retired.
Well, now they have these, the door operators now, they're actually the same as elevator machines, where they have a closed loop electrical system. So they can actually make it where they can go, and then they can get to the certain point where they're going to close, and they can put more pressure, go slower, but more pressure. You couldn't do that with the old ones, which were an open loop. Boy, I'm telling you, everybody's like, what?
Yeah.
What are they talking about? So
talking about speaking French.
Yeah, I'm really speaking French now, but they have new door operators that can actually alleviate that. But I'm sure they won't put them on because that costs money too.
Right.
So, and then it's the funny thing about the doors is that they are what work the most on an elevator, and they're what are maintained the least.
And take the most beating.
And they take the most beating.
I see people crash into them with carts and
I told you the story
holding them, and I
told you the story about the time I was working at the GM plant, and
Where, Delaware?
They hit the gate so hard with a forklift that they bent it.
Oh, yeah. I heard you tell that story on the Weeds podcast.
So what happened was we took it off, and we finally couldn't fix it anymore. It's broken, and we tried welding it, and welding thing was just horrible. We couldn't even get it to work right. So we got on to buy a brand new gate. So I went over there with another guy. We went over, we took the old gate off, we put the new gate on, brand new, running up and down. Oh, man, look at this. This is great. I didn't get out of the parking lot. And the guy comes in and says, that door's not working. I go, what do you mean the door's not working? I went over. They ran into the brand new, big yellow painted gate with a forklift. Still had the forklift imprints in it. They crashed into it and bent the gate. And I'm like, it's not even an hour old.
Yeah.
So the guy goes, can you fix it? I'm like, so I said, we'll try. So we took the new gate off, put it down on the ground. I said, go get the forklift guy. So he goes over. I said, hey, buddy, we're going to need you to do a positive thing now. Run over that gate with the forklift. So we had him just run over it a couple of times and straighten it back out. We put it back on there, and it worked.
I remember you telling the story that someone got the bright idea because apparently, I don't know, the subtle...
The Bobcat story.
No, not the Bobcat. Okay. Apparently, only elevator guys are allowed to work on elevators, which makes sense because they're pretty sophisticated. But somebody decided to get his own carpenter to go in there and panel the inside, and it
was at a restaurant. And so what happened was there was a restaurant, and they had this one elevator in there, and they decided to go in there and have their own carpenter guys go in there and put in a new cab. So they're in there, and they put a new floor down, and they put new cab walls and everything. So they call me in, and I go, hey, guys, I don't know who put this floor in, but this whole panel that for me to get into where the controls are, you put like this nice granite, 3/4 inch granite floor in there. That's not going to fly because I can't open this panel anymore. So they're like, what? I go, yeah, you got to tear this floor up. So they go, oh, I can't believe this. They go, oh, well, we'll call you back when we figure out what we're going to do. I said, okay. So I leave. Well, a guy decides, I'll tell you what, I know what I'll do. I'll get a saw and I'll sawzall the floor, the panel, even with the floor. Then I'll be able to open it. What he didn't realize was that the cable, the control cable, ran down through the bottom of the elevator. So he got about, I don't know, halfway through that panel and shorted everything out. And he called me back over, and I go to they go, okay, we got it working. I go, what'd you do? They go, we cut through the panel. I go, at the bottom? He goes, yeah. I said, where the wires are? What wires? So anyhow, I open it up, and I look, and when he cut through the wires, the electricity was still on. And when he cut through the wires, it shorted everything out. So they had to pay all kinds of boards. It cost them a fortune. It would cost them more than if they would have let us do the cab.
Right.
The money they saved on the cab, they spent on us rewiring the whole elevator and everything. Yeah, but he took the whole soul. I got it. And he's like,
yeah, that's all famous last words.
That was the end of that.
Work stories are the best. You know, we're running long on this now, but we should just dedicate a podcast on like the funniest, most bizarre
elevator stories.
Well, any job that you've had, like, because all the jobs that I've had, there's a million of them.
Right.
They're just so goddamn funny.
Crazy work stories.
They are. They're all right. And everyone's got them, so everyone can relate.
All right, listeners of the podcast, do us a favor. Send us email. Hello, like Don did. Go over to hello@brandxpodcast.com. That's our email address. And email us your funniest work story. Let's see if we get any. I don't know. I probably scared off all the animal lovers. All the animal lovers are not listening anymore because I scared them off when I did the whole thing about the dog peeing on the fence.
It was a funny video. I did catch it.
All right. So anyhow, let's wrap this thing up. Hey, listen, if you want to reach out to us, we'd love to hear from you. We are on the Twitter at brand_X_podcast. And we're also on Facebook, facebook.com/brandxpodcast. And you can go over to the web, brandxpodcast.com. Check us out. We really appreciate you hanging out with us. And if you like us, head on over to iTunes, if you have iTunes, and give us a review. We would love that. We love reviews. It's spreading the love. All right, everybody. Come on back next week for another episode of the Brand X Podcast.
And once again, keep cool.